Hi, my name is Trey Eagle, and I have come up with the hard work makes light work theory. Now, we've all probably had that old-headed coach that it didn't matter how good the team was going to be. You were going to be the hardest working, most conditioned team on the field or on the court, right? While a lot of those teams subsequently are pretty good, right, because they have a pretty good mentality of how to go about games, there's a lot of drop-off motivation between your high-end talent players and your low-end talent players. And I experienced that growing up. Had an old head football coach. We conditioned all the way up until Wednesdays, 2 days before games, every single week, and we were pretty good. But players were running to the ground. You got a lot of drop-off of motivation and guys who didn't really play. Then I came to college, and it was, you're going to be conditioned if you work hard in practice, right? Like, we won't have to condition if you go hard in drills. But I also felt like there's a lack of edge to that team, right? So I was thinking there's got to be some kind of bridge that we can make to gap that hardworking mentality, but we're not running our players into the ground, and we're keeping everyone motivated at the same time. That's where the hard work makes light work theory comes in. Right now, I believe this can apply to anybody, but specifically we're going to apply this to high school football players. Here's the model. It's going to start up at the top with coach support and climate. It's going to fall down to task value, personal investment, and expectations of success, all the way down to mastery attempts, team cohesiveness, and finally motivated behaviors. First off, though, you got to establish a culture. I actually recently ran into a quote the other day from the new head basketball coach at the University of Iowa, Ben McCollum. He said, in his first summer, this last summer was his first summer with the team. He said the first thing they try to do and get out of the summer is build effort, and you build consistency in the habits that you build with that effort, right? And I think that's awesome, right? That's exactly what I want this theory to establish. I want the effort that you put in to build habits that make you successful along in your sport. And as a coach, you have to establish those understanding of those expectations, right? You want to make your players aware of the costs that are ahead of them and the investments they're about to put in, so that they understand that it is worth it, that task value is worth it to them. Those costs and investments are going to be worth it in the long run here. So once you've established that culture, right, you fall down into these three that you could put together, but I made them three separate things because they're going to have three different effects on this theory here. Task value, personal investment, and expectations of success. I abbreviated them there for you, but so once that culture is established, the players are going to be aware of what the season's going to cost them personally, whether it be time, effort, maybe injury, right? Injury is always a possibility, but this culture should help establish the expectancy of success, right? Like, you establish your hardworking mentality. It's going to create that hype around the season, and it's going to create an expectation for success amongst your players. Once they have that expectation of success, it's going to apply to the value of their task value towards the football season, right? Like, this football season is going to mean something to them if they have a high expectation of success going into the season, and that culture has established that, right? And then Weiss 2020, it was seen that, high perceptions of future success and value, they very well might be a reason why there's a perceived higher enjoyment and total benefits in the season, right? So if these players perceive a higher expectation of success and have more of a task value around that football season, they're more than likely going to be more motivated to work hard for that culture to be established. These three things that I have kind of on the same playing field, I lead them in the mastery attempts, right? So again, once that culture is established, the team is going to start to attempt higher levels of work to help build that culture. You've kind of laid the baseline, right? How can we build on that? I always like to use, when I teach or when I coach in the weight room, I coach baseball in the summer, every single time we do something well, right? I say, hey, that's your bar. That's your bar that you've set for yourself. How can you raise that? So if that climate has the right support around it and the actions that are building that culture are reinforced, it's going to create a sense of pride, right? And as we saw in William and Destano, pride is going to be motivated individuals to exert, is going to have, motivated individuals to exert greater effort on a taxing task due to them receiving, that social acclaim, that feedback, that sense of pride that they're doing well, help building that culture. And an example could be players realizing that, we are building this culture, things are going well. They're going to start taking extra reps after practice. They're going to see that we need to put in more work. We're going to do these more reps to help build onto that culture. In mastery attempts, leading into team cohesiveness, right? Team cohesiveness, roles are going to be established. People are going to find out where they fall on the totem pole when it comes to being on the team. Leaders are going to emerge, whether it be naturally picked out by coaches or by peers. The athletes who don't emerge as leaders, right? They're going to start to follow. Every team is going to start to have followers. Hopefully your leaders are setting a good example for those followers. An important note in the article that I found by Cotterill 2022, when developing the leadership of youth sport team captains, ongoing support and guidance provided to them by coaches is going to be huge, right? Like, you're talking about high school kids. They don't know how to lead through and through, right? So these being backed up by their coaches is going to be huge for them to continue to grow as leaders and continue to grow the athletes that are following them. And then team cohesiveness is going to lead to these motivated behaviors that are overall going to carry this theory, this culture all the way through the season, right? So these motivated behaviors, once the culture has been established and the effort has been put forth for the season, this will create behaviors that will keep the athlete and the teammates motivated, right? Like, these behaviors, you can keep them motivated through the season so that they can have a successful season with their expectancies of success that they have built for themselves. These behaviors can include anything from the just maintained effort throughout the season. It's pretty simple. It should be an expectation regardless, but that would be one of the behaviors that's established amongst the team. Accountability of actions both on and off the field to help the team. It's going to carry into the classroom. Are they getting grades to pass, to stay eligible, to stay on the field, right? Are they respecting their teachers so that their team has a good image amongst the school, amongst the community? Are they treating community members with success? Are they going out doing community service, or are they going messing around, stealing stuff from stores, driving their cars super fast through town? That was always one. Growing up in a small town, that was huge. But just teammates holding each other accountable on and off the field to maintain that culture, maintain that image that they're trying to build for themselves. And then finally, leadership taking care of any actions that do not align with that culture. If you have these followers that haven't declared themselves as leaders or want to be leaders, making sure that your leadership is nipping that action right in the butt so that it doesn't carry on throughout and become a bigger issue than it needs to be, because it only takes one bad apple to ruin a good bunch, right? So once those leaders are established, if they're nipping those actions in the butt and they're really trying to keep that culture, that's going to help maintain that throughout the season. And as we saw in the ANOLA 2018 article, it was found that the most common motivated type athlete was a dual motivated athlete. They were characterized as high value placed on both sport and schoolwork, right? So at the beginning of school, the pattern was pretty typical, found amongst 60% of the youth athletes that were studied. So again, that just backs up this theory with your dual motivated athletes. If they're doing the right things in school and they're doing the right things on the field, that culture is going to be established amongst this motivational theory, right? So how does this translate? As I found in another article by Mock and Brentis in 2021, it's pretty wordy here. Highly task-oriented environments such as elite competitive sports, they experience cohesion, they align people with the goal of achieving success. It says, in other words, that cohesion building experiences improve familiarity and camaraderie between team members, lowering the levels of anxiety and increasing expectation of success. So, right, we can do all these things on and off the field. How's it going to translate to actual success on the field, right? So they do these tough things together. They work hard together. They hold each other accountable. They're familiar with each other. They go through hard workouts, hard practices. How does that translate, right? It's going to lower their level of anxiety when they're performing because they're familiar with how each and every one on the team acts. They know what to expect of their teammates. They know who they can go to when times get tough, right? It's going to lower their level of anxiety because they have that comfortable feeling amongst their teammates, amongst their coaches, right? Because this is all growing up together. This culture is growing up together. And it's going to increase their expectation of success, right? They expect to be successful because everyone in the program is being held at a high level. Some social influence that may affect this, right? If a poor culture has already previously been established, it's going to be pretty hard to break that pattern. It's not going to have a lot of care amongst your athletes. You're not going to have a bunch of support from the community, from the school, right? Because not everyone sees the importance of it, right? Because they haven't seen a successful program show that there's importance for it. So, along with that, the poor culture is going to have a lot of negative outside talk, a lot of negative outside influence. That could be anything from the community, the non-athletes amongst the school, even teachers that are trying to make sure kids are focused on school rather than, their sport, right? I've seen it. I've seen it in my hometown. We had a coach establish a great hardworking culture for 40-some years. He unfortunately passed away. Brand new coach came in from out of town, didn't reach out to the community, didn't reach out to the school members, kind of came in, did his own thing, and had the worst season and since the school started tracking records, right? So once that poor culture is established, it's going to be really hard to break. Fortunately, they have found a coach to replace him to build that culture back up and build on that culture so many had worked hard to build for 40-some years. But it can be pretty easy to fall into the trap of establishing a poor culture. So some strategies that you can use to help implement this theory and help implement this culture building. As a new coach, meet with, your projected leaders of the team, right? So you want to establish what you want out of your culture right away. Make it known that you're not going to let certain things slide. You're not going to let slacking off in the classroom slide, messing around the community, being poor community members. Making sure these leaders know that so that they can nip it in the butt with their own teammates so you don't have to intervene. Creating a trust between your coaching staff and the leaders of the team. If the leaders of the team can't trust you as a coach, then you're not going to be able to get anything done. And then 2, if there are no established leaders, you're coming to camp with a lot of competition-based stuff, right? You divide into teams on some certain conditioning tests, like relay races or whatnot. And, your leaders are going to naturally form themselves because at the end of the day, competitive instinct's going to kick in because, if you keep losing, you're going to have to keep conditioning. That's how a lot of things work. So leaders are going to pick themselves up, be like, hey guys, here we go. Your leaders are going to naturally appear. And then you're going to have your followers. And your followers are going to start taking the lead behind the established leaders of the team. You could also divide, we call them super teams. We did this in college, where you get certain points for doing things well, A+ on tests in the classroom, doing community work, just stuff like that to help get points to your team, and the team with the highest amount of points ended up getting a prize at the end. I think it was team merch. But, if this, like I said, if this is done right, you're going to naturally have your leaders rise to the top, start leading the way in the culture that you're trying to build amongst your team, and it's going to establish roles amongst your team as well. So what I would do for an in-class strategy, I'd divide the class, into just quadrants to make it easy. I'd tell them what's going to happen. I would give them 5 seconds to look at this image, and then I would take it away, and then I would give them 30 seconds to try to recreate that picture and just kind of see who wants to try to lead the way. And who wants to, maybe we don't have a super artistic person. Maybe they're really good at memorizing though. So just establishing roles amongst them, and then to just kind of see where it goes from there. But yeah, I overall think that this theory can help bridge that gap from overworking your players, running them into the ground, but still having that hard-nosed team that's, super high character, super hardworking, and is going to overall get the job done to the best of their ability.